Hello, sorcerers and sorceresses. Welcome to Gamertopia. Today I have an absolutely insane build video that allowed me to solo Uber Lilith pre-level 100. Yes, it is, of course, a ball lightning build, but I had to showcase it because it is just too insane. If you use this build or enjoy the video, remember to subscribe to my channel so that you can stay up to date with all of my future Diablo videos. Let's get on to the build. We'll start off with 1 rank of Arc Lash, Enhanced Arc Lash, and Glinting Arc Lash, which gives us a chance at reducing our skill cooldowns. Then, in our core skill tree, we'll take 3 ranks of Potent Warding, giving us 9% increased resistance to all elements and 3% increase to the maximum resistance to the element of the skill you cast. We will also take 1 rank of Chain Lightning and use this as our first enchantment, which is going to cast a Chain Lightning every time we use 83 mana. I'll come back to why this is important when we get to the gear. This build is very defensive skill heavy. We'll start with 1 rank of Flame Shield to give us immunity and also some fire damage. We'll also be taking Enhanced Flame Shield for the 25% increase in movement speed when Flame Shield is active. We are going to use 4 ranks of Teleport with Enhanced and Shimmering Teleport for the 30% damage reduction. We'll also take 1 rank of Frost Nova with Enhanced and Mystical Frost Nova. Mystical Frost Nova is going to make enemies vulnerable with an increased timer for bosses. This is going to help with increasing our damage output. Now we'll be maxing out the Elemental Attunement and Glass Cannon passives with 3 ranks. Glass Cannon is great for increasing our damage output, and Elemental Attunement gives us 15% lucky hit chance to reset a defensive skill cooldown. And with 3 of them in our arsenal, this is going to be huge. We will only be taking passives in the Conjuration tree. We'll start with 3 ranks of Precision Magic to increase our lucky hit chance by 15%. Then we'll take 1 rank of Align the Elements as a passive to open up Mana Shield and Protection, which will both be maxed out with 3 ranks. These both will be great for helping us increase our survivability. Now to our Mastery tree, we'll max out Ball Lightning, of course, which will be our main mob and boss melting ability. Then we'll also be taking Enhanced and Wizard's Ball Lightning, which will help us create Crackling Energy. We are also going to use Ball Lightning as our second enchantment. This is going to give us a 30% chance to form a static Ball Lightning whenever we critically strike. Next, we'll take 3 ranks of Static Discharge. This gives us a 15% lucky hit chance to form a Crackling Energy when we critically strike with shock skills. We'll also be taking 3 ranks of Invigorating Conduit. This is super important. This is going to give us 12 mana every time we pick up a Crackling Energy. Moving down to our ultimate tree, we'll be using Unstable Currents with Prime and Supreme Currents. These will increase our attack speed and the speed in which our Crackling Energy pulses. We will also take 1 rank of Coursing Current, giving us 1 tiny percent increase to our critical strike chance, but also allows us to max out Conduction, which will increase our movement speed by 9% when our shock skills critically strike. And now we can max out Convulsions, which gives our shock skills a 9% chance to stun enemies for 3 seconds. Lastly, we will be using Overflowing Energy as our key passive to reduce our shock skill cooldowns even further. Now moving on to the Paragon board. For your starting board, you'll start up the right here, and at the glyph socket, we'll be using the Adept glyph, giving us increased Mastery skill damage for every 5 intelligence within range. This is going to directly increase the damage of our Ball Lightning skill, and as you can see, almost doubles the amount of damage we're able to do with it when you have all the available intelligence nodes unlocked. Then we'll work our way up the tree to unlock our second board, which is going to be the Enchantment Master board. We'll work our way over to the right to the glyph socket, and we'll be using the Reinforced glyph. This glyph gives us a bonus to all rare nodes in range, and while the bonus from the Erudite node is nice, we are mostly using this glyph for the Elemental Balance node, which gives us the non-physical damage increase. This rare node, the Elementalist rare node, and the Ruinous rare node are essential for this build, and I'd imagine for any sorcerer build really, because even without the glyph bonus, just having these 3 rare nodes give you a 60% increase to your damage output, which is absolutely massive. Then we'll keep working our way up to the Legendary node, which gives us a 20% bonus to our enchantments. After that, you'll want to return to the right side of the board and exit towards the right, and you'll want to attach the Ceaseless Conduit board. We'll work our way down to the glyph socket and use the Destruction glyph. This gives us a 15% increase to our critical strike damage for every 5 dexterity unlock, and also increases our total damage output by 2%, but stacking up to 12% when we critically strike. Now we'll wrap around the top here to grab our Legendary node, which will give our Crackling Energy a 25% chance to not be consumed, and also increases the damage of the Crackling Energy by 3% for every 20 mana we have. Now we're going to backtrack and attach our next board to the left side of the Enchantment Master board, and that board is going to be Frigid Fate. We'll head over towards the glyph socket, which will be charged for this one. The charged glyph is going to increase the damage of our Crackling Energy pulses for every 5 intelligence that we unlock, and also increase our overall damage output by 5%, stacking up to 15% when we pick up Crackling Energy. This is huge. We're basically constantly creating and picking up Crackling Energy, so it's a free 15% damage increase. Now we'll head down to the bottom of this board and attach the Icefall board. We aren't going to use the Legendary node on this board, but we will grab the Polar Rime node, which gives us another 10% non-physical damage increase, and then we'll go down to the glyph socket, which is going to be Imbiber. The Imbiber glyph will give us an extra percentage of damage while we are healthy, and will almost always be healthy because of the Protection passive, which gives us a barrier every time we use a cooldown. For the Vampiric powers, we're using Anticipation, which gives us 20% decreased cooldown. For our ultimate skill, Prey on the Weak, which gives us 16% increased damage to vulnerable enemies. Ravenous, which gives us a 20% lucky hit chance to increase our attack attack speed by 40% of our total movement speed. Moonrise, which is going to increase our attack speed and movement speed. And lastly, a Cursed Touch for the increased vampiric curse attributes. Moving on to the gear now, we do have a few uniques here, but they are not all necessary. They definitely do make the build a lot better, but the only one that really makes a giant difference for this build is Tybalt's Will. Before we get into that, let's start at the top. On the helmet, we have the aspect of Shared Misery, which gives us a 30 to 50% chance to spread our stun effects from our shock skills. The chest will be Raiment of the Infinite, which gives our teleport a stun, which will play nicely with our helmet aspect. On the gloves, we'll use Accelerating aspect to give us a 15 to 25% attack speed increase when we critically strike with core skills. We'll be casting the core skill Chain Lightning automatically through our enchantments, so that is where that will come into play. Now we have Tybalt's Will. This is going to give us 20 to 40% increased damage output whenever we become unstoppable for 4 seconds after that. It's also going to give us 50 mana when we become unstoppable. This is going to be huge, not only for the increased damage, but also for the mana regeneration. Every time we use teleport, we will be becoming unstoppable, so we will not only be using the skill offensively, but also to give us a free 50 mana. For boots, we're going to use Asu's Heirloom, which gives us increased critical strike chance by 20 to 30% of our movement speed bonus. On my weapon, I have Aspect of Overwhelming Currents, which gives unstable currents a 10 to 20% chance to cast an additional shock skill. On the offhand, we'll use Conceited Aspect for the 15 to 25% increased damage while we have a barrier. All of our cooldowns will give us a barrier, so that is going to be very often. The first ring is Talrash's Loop, which gives us a 10 to 15% increased damage for 4 seconds for each element that we use against an enemy. On the next ring, you'll want to use Gravitational Aspect for the 15 to 25% increased damage of Ball Lightning, and also so the Ball Lightnings will circle around you. And lastly, we have the Aspect of Disobedience on our amulet. This is also going to be a big one because we're going to drastically increase our survivability with this. As for stats, you definitely want to go for cooldown reduction as much as possible. Critical strike chance, critical strike damage, and lightning critical strike damage are going to be your next priority. You also want to make sure that you have movement speed on your boots and amulet, since we have a few different aspects that are going to be increasing our damage output through our movement speed. Your amulet should also have increased ranks of mastery skills and increased ranks of glass cannon. As for how to play this build, the biggest thing is going to be keep moving. You want to keep attacking enemies to keep your armor high from the disobedience aspect. Use your teleport as often as possible to stun enemies. Freeze enemies to CC them and increase your damage. Keep your ultimate in use for large clusters of mobs and elites. And use flame armor defensively for getting out of sticky situations. Remember to use evade often, since Asu's Heirloom will give you a 75% increased movement speed, and this is in turn going to give you a critical strike chance boost. Hope this helps with all your magical needs. Let me know in the comments what you think of the build and if you'll be using it. Happy leveling!